I want to deconstruct the power of words for a second here. Let's say I say the word cat. I say cat, you think cat. Now you've got a picture of a cat in your mind, but the cat that you're thinking is different to the cat that I'm thinking of. Yet they both represent the same sort of construct of catness. Now, in addition to this, the thought that I'm thinking of, the cat that I'm thinking of, doesn't really exist. It's a collection, it's a combination of all of the different cats that I've seen in real life, as well as the construct of cats, as in what people have said about cats, the cats that I've seen on cartoons, the idea or the people talking about it in books. It's all come together to form this construct that bang pops into my mind or pops into your mind when we say cat. And the same thing is what you're thinking of is different to what I'm thinking of, right? So words are just a representation of the construct. They're not the construct themselves. It's like if I say the word cat, it's not a true example of the thing. It's a phantasm. It's a representation. Now, what I'm saying is, it's obvious, or you can be like, well, so what? It's important because we often try and think and communicate in words. You know, so you'll talk to someone, and when you talk to someone, they're saying a bunch of words, it travels through the air or through the text messages or whatever, and then you interpret it. They say something, they turn this creation into some words, those words travel across, your brain hears those words and then interprets it into its own creation, and then you respond back via this process. Do you see how we can miscommunicate? Because I might think something, I put it, and I sort of narrow that concept into one word or a sentence. You know, obviously we're talking about one word, but that could apply to paragraphs. And you take that across and you then put it back into this concept. My one word triggers that concept as opposed to a direct transfer. This is important in terms of communication, because if I say to you, hey, I'm feeling anxious, hey, I'm feeling depressed, hey, I'm excited, or you're upsetting me, I've just triggered a bunch of things. But when I say anxiety, that's my concept of anxiety, right? I'm thinking all of these different sort of symptoms all together, tight chest, worry about the future, shallow breathing, whatever. Then I say anxiety and you hear the word anxiety and you think something similar but not the same. And I think this is why we struggle with understanding mental health and all that sort of stuff, because it's like, well, what I say and what you hear aren't the same thing. Even if you repeat back to me, I'm like, hey, I'm struggling with anxiety, and you're like, oh, hey, you're struggling with anxiety. It doesn't quite bridge that gap. The same approach is applied when you're reading fiction. I was listening to an interview via Stephen King, and he said that you let the reader fill in the gaps. So he's obviously a horror writer. So if he said to you, there was a head in a box on the table, just those words evokes an image in your mind. Now, your image is different to my image, but that image is horrifying. It's horrifying for you as it's horrifying for me, but what we're picturing are different. But if I start to describe the head and describe the box and describe the table and the dimensions and the colors and the shapes and all that sort of stuff, I'm now painting a picture of a very specific box. Is that a better approach to storytelling? Is it a better approach to communication? Well, from a storytelling perspective, from an author's perspective, I want you to fill in the gaps, because your imagination, your ability to read and interpret and tell the story in your head actually helps me to tell a better fictional story. But if I was to want to convey information to you that you understood exactly what I'm thinking, because it's important from a work perspective or a mental health perspective, I need to be as specific and as focused on that topic as possible. And I want to make sure you understand exactly what I'm saying, not what you think I'm saying. Because I don't want to lead to any misinterpretations where the words that I'm talking about are different to the words that you're hearing. Or obviously you're hearing the same words but misinterpreting them in that sense. This is a little bit of like sort of that waxing philosophical, and it's like, well, why do we care? We are creatures that communicate. That's vital for our existence. So if we're finding that we're misinterpreting things, right? Because it goes the other way. You could say something to me and you could use words and I'll misinterpret it. I had this discussion with my partner last night. She said, we were talking about the concept of money being power. Now, as I say those words, I get this feeling that you're like, oh, money's power, therefore it's evil. Because power seems like an evil word. But is power evil? Well, no, power is a tool to be used however you like. And if you apply the term money, If I had more money, I could donate it to charities. I could inspire different people. I could support their new ventures, right? Money's power in that sense. I could free people from poverty. That's a power. But I could also use it as a manipulation and control and all of that sort of stuff. Is money, is power a bad thing or a good thing? We're just programmed to imply certain things. Same thing as manipulation. If I said to you, I'm going to manipulate you to do something. Oh, sounds bad, right? But what if we deconstruct that? What if I was manipulating you or someone you care about to stop self-harming or stop committing suicide? What if I was manipulating you to move towards self-improvement, to stop taking drugs, to instill a morning routine? I mean, in fact, the stuff that I'm doing online is effectively manipulation. I'm putting it out there to manipulate myself into performing better, to being more consistent, and to help you guys to do the same. Am I evil? Is manipulation in that sense evil? Or is it a useful tool? It's hard. When I'm teaching my son to not throw his food on the ground and to not hit me, and rather to use his words to say, hey, I'm full. Hey, I don't like this. When I'm trying to teach him how to use his words, I will quote unquote manipulate him in the sense of, if he starts throwing stuff on the ground, I might, ignore, or I might say that's not right, or I might, do certain things to guide his behavior down a certain pathway, i.e. one that's socially acceptable, that, won't get him in trouble or annoy people, yada yada. I'm manipulating. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? The point I'm trying to make here is words convey a specific meaning, but it might not be the meaning that we're projecting. And it might not be what you're receiving when you hear words. My words, anyone's words, when you read them, might not be the meaning that they were meant to be. What you hear and what you interpret could be different to what they're saying. So with all this in mind, I aim to have as much open and honest communication, i.e. if I say something and you're not sure about it, talk to me. Final note, I've obviously changed my channel name to become The Beard of Knowledge. Now, as you can see, beard. And the reason I've chosen this is because when I was doing teaching, I grew a beard and some of the students started calling me that. They just came up with that nickname. So I'm like, may as well. Seems like a bit of fun. However, someone on one of the social channels suggested that it seemed sexist. Okay? And sort of got a bit upset that I would choose to use The Beard of Knowledge as a name. Now, I expressed the reasons why I chose that and also asked for clarification as to why that would be seen as a sexist thing. Why would being called The Beard of Knowledge be a sexist thing? And she suggested that it implied a certain level of, that to be knowledgeable, you have to have a beard. But that's not what I meant. Now, obviously there was a miscommunication in the sense that she read what I posted, and now we can clarify. And we had a little bit of a back and forth, and it settled. I didn't mean that. I'm not saying that you have to have a beard to be knowledgeable. It's more just a little bit of a joke. That's it. No gender. I'm not assuming anyone's gender. And not that gender matters for wisdom or knowledge or that sort of stuff. But people suggested I was knowledgeable and I've got a beard. But that dialogue, that back and forth, had to happen to clarify the meaning in this person's mind and also to clarify in my mind, oh, this is how people could interpret that. Didn't think of it. Now I know. So let's move towards open and honest communication and just consider that the way you're interpreting words may not be exactly how they were meant to be interpreted. Yeah? Cheers.